right, now we're going to talk about the renal system. Okay, so when we think about the renal system, we're going to first talk about the components, and then finally the actual function of what is the whole purpose of it. So when we think about components, what's the first thing you think about when you think about the renal system? Think about your kidneys. I'm losing my flexibility now as you get older, so this will happen, so get ready. So when we do thinking about the renal system, the first thing we think about is the kidney. So where are your kidneys? It's in your backside, right? So feel for them. If you can't find them, then there's a problem. So we begin my unique drawing. So this is a kidney, right? So if you ever eaten kidney beans, the reason why they're named kidney beans because they look like kidneys, right? So the kidney's main function is to produce urine. So after all this metabolic waste goes through the urine, goes through the kidney, comes out as this new product called urine. And the urine is taken through this structure called the ureter, this vessel, and it's stored here. The bladder doesn't really look like that, it's not a square, in this bladder for storage. And so the bladder, again, composed of a lot of rugae. So rugae helps allowing for the folding, the expansion and contraction of the bladder. And eventually, whenever the time comes and the pressure is on and you need to go to the bathroom and do number one, you generate all this force, and then the sphincters open and it goes out through the urethra. All right, so this is the basic components. You got the kidney going through the ureter, stored in the bladder, and then finally going out the urethra. All right, now we want to talk about the function or regulation. So when we look at the kidneys, this is a very major excretory organ, so meaning it excretes a lot of material. So the main regulation it does is it removes a lot of metabolic waste. So it removes these metabolic wastes. So any kind of product from cellular respiration gets waste removed from the kidneys in a form of urine. What else does it do? So it regulates blood volume. So blood volume is regulated through the kidneys. How so? Well, if you remember from that hormone secreted from the endocrine system, antidiuretic hormone binds to a certain region of the kidney inside the nephron region called the collecting duct, allowing for these aquaporins to produce, allowing for the water to be transmitted back into the body. So what is the function of ADH when we look at blood volume? What is the function of ADH, antidiuretic hormone? So it's a function in fluid retention, specifically water. So fluid is retained here. What else does it do? It regulates the extracellular ions as well. So it maintains, so these two blood volumes could be for blood pressure and then also regulation of osmolarity. So osmolarity is regulated via the ions. So what ions am I specifically talking about? Our salts, sodium, potassium, calcium, our chlorines, magnesium, all of our metallic elements. So what's a perfect example of a hormone that binds and regulates osmolarity in the renal system that we learned in the endocrine system? Aldosterone. So aldosterone binds to the distal convoluted tubule in the nephron. And what was the function of aldosterone? Increase sodium reabsorption. So sodium comes into the blood. So blood levels of sodium increases. And what decreases? If you remember, calcium, because calcium gets secreted out of the blood and into the renal system and out the body. All right, so regulation of osmolarity. Also maintenance of acid balances. So when we talk about acid balances, acid-base balances, how so? When we talked about the respiratory acidosis, so different types of acidosis and alkalosis, specifically the respiratory system. When the respiratory system faces some kind of pH imbalance, there is a metabolic pathway where it becomes regulated. So where does it happen? Specifically in the renal system. What were the two metabolites that are involved? These are the protons and also the bicarbonate. So the proton is acidic, the bicarbonate is basic. So depending on the problem, remember respiratory pH imbalance is compensated via a metabolic pathway. So whenever there's pH imbalances, one of these metabolites are either reabsorbed or secreted in order to maintain homeostatic balances. And then finally, the kidneys play a big role in production of hormones. Two hormones that you've seen before, EPO, erythropoietin. So what is the function of erythropoietin? Increase the production of red blood cells through the process of erythropoiesis. So this hormone is required for red blood cell formation. What other hormone? Renin. So during instances of low blood pressure, there are these baroreceptors, so pressure receptors, in your juxtaglomerular cells that secrete renin. Renin's main function was what? Renin's main function was to cleave angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1 in order to allow for this production of allow for the proper downstream cascade of angiotensin 2 in order to increase blood pressure. So erythropoietin increases red blood cells. Renin secretion allows for the increase in blood pressure during instances of low blood pressure. And so a lot of these are all the different components and actual functions of the renal system.